Welcome to USC 2325 Democracy and Inequality. My name is Joe Chow, and I will be your instructor for this class. And in this video, I just want to cover some commonly asked questions about the class and as well as talk about the basic mechanics of the class. So to begin, let me do some basic housekeeping first, and let me introduce myself properly. So as already said, my name is Joe Chow, and I am a philosopher by training and by profession, meaning that I was trained as a philosopher and I also do research in philosophy. Specifically, I do research in this area called relational egalitarianism, also democratic theory and democratic authority, although I have other interests, other related interests in social epistemology, in the philosophy of emotions, in thinking about how technology influences society, right? And hopefully in the next few semesters, you will see some related inquiry classes about these topics too. And if you have the chance and you're interested, I hope to also see you in those classes. Okay, but if you're wondering what does relational egalitarianism mean, what does democratic authority mean, what is democratic theory, right? Well, that's very good, because that's what we are here in this specific class to understand. We try to unpack some of these concepts, try to understand how we think about democracy, how we think about equality, what does it mean, and what are its political and policy implications for how we live currently, right? And as we will continually discuss, right, these are sort of pertinent questions, especially given the current moment. But back to the sort of basic housekeeping issues. We'll talk about those related issues later. Okay, so you can reach me if you need to, either through email or through Telegram, and those are the addresses there, right? Typically, if you need to reach me a bit quicker, Telegram is better, but I also reply pretty quickly by email. So my office hours for this semester will be Monday and Wednesday, 11 to 1, and Friday, 4 to 6. And if for some reason these times don't work, please email me. Right? Scheduling nowadays is pretty flexible because we will be having consultations solely online. And that leads us to the wider point that I want to sort of discuss. Take some time to talk about. We should talk about the elephant in the room, COVID-19. COVID-19 means that we have to carry out all classes, at least in the USP, online. And that also means changing the way we communicate and interact with one another. Now, this I think has some important benefits, but it also has certain disadvantages. On the plus side, online learning is flexible, because we will record all the Zoom sessions or all the Microsoft Teams sessions, right? And you can view them again and again, catch something that you missed, or maybe hear something you missed out, or maybe if you find something I said very funny, or something that your classmates said is very funny and you want to hear it again, right? You can do that at your own time, at your own pace, at your leisure. So that is, I think, an important benefit to online learning. And also, more importantly, online learning helps us to contain the spread of COVID-19, right? Which helps us to be safe, or at least safer, right? And finally, online learning can also enable us to facilitate different kinds of interactions between students and between students. But online learning also means that communication might be impeded. So at the end of each session, I will collate all of your questions and I'll answer them in a blog post. And I'll also have a short exercise before each class where I ask you what do you think was interesting from the previous class, what do you think could have been clarified, or right, and what do you want to sort of know more about. So these are ways in which we can, I think, mitigate the possibility of miscommunication or not things not being clarified or clear. But I also want to talk about something which is more important in terms of the bigger scheme of things outside and also inside the classroom. COVID-19 is likely to create a strain on our mental health, including yours. So as we will discuss in class, COVID-19 exacerbates many tensions and inequalities in society, and in doing so can create additional stress for all of us, right? COVID-19 creates some economic uncertainty, also creates health uncertainties, and often these uncertainties have a way of exacerbating inequalities, right? As we will discuss. So this can be a very stressful time for everyone, including yourselves. So I would just like to remind all of you that there are resources available, both university-wide and at the USP, should you need someone to talk to. And if you need to talk to someone informally, please feel free to reach out, either through, again, email or telegram. These are avenues you can reach out to me over. Now, COVID-19 can also make learning a bit more difficult. And as students, I think it's natural for all of you to be concerned about grading. Now, I would like you to rest assured that I will grade fairly, and I'll also, more importantly, I believe, give you formative feedback that will help you improve throughout the semester. And if ever you need to talk to me about a grade or ask me a question about assignment, right? Most of the time, don't think about it in terms of I need to clarify a grade, but also in terms of, oh, I have a question about the assignment, I just don't know. Please go ahead, email, telegram, and notice that this applies not just during this time, but I just want to stress that this is especially a time where all means of communication, I think, should be used and utilized. And if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. That is very important for sort of building two-way communication between us, between myself and yourself. Okay. So this leads me on to the kind of things we'll be doing in the classroom. So one of the key beliefs I have about teaching and learning is that we all learn together. So I've been emphasizing about us talking together, us exploring these questions together, right? And I think it's central to creating a social environment where people are free to share their thoughts openly. And I think this is especially important in a class about democracy and inequality, as we will discuss later. So, but especially online classes can often make it difficult, right, to create this kind of open social environment, especially if people don't know each other prior to the class, right? So it can make things a bit more difficult. So to mitigate this problem, we can't eliminate it because this is the new normal, right, that we are living in, the new world that we are facing. I have a small request. Could you all please send me a 20 or 30-second video with the following information: your name, your major, and one interesting thing about you. I will collate all of these videos and share them in the first session. Okay, so now I guess it's an appropriate time for me to do the same. Right? So I already shared my name and my research interests with you, so I won't go through that again. So I'll share one interesting thing about myself. Now I will share more about myself in the class, but for now, here's one interesting thing about me. Up to fairly recently, unfortunately because he passed away a month and a half ago, I was a caregiver to my senior dog, Jack, who despite his age was always very cheerful. So here's a short clip of him running down the hallway at age 60, a pretty old age for most dogs. Okay, back to the mechanics of the class. As with most classes in USP, this class will be run seminar style, where we'll discuss some ideas together. Now there will be some classes which will be a bit more lecture heavy, especially towards the beginning of the module, because I want to introduce first some key concepts to the class. But every class will have some discussion components, especially group discussion components. Now let me explain why I use group discussions. So I think there are two reasons for group discussions. First of all, pedagogical research has shown that group discussions help students learn much more than direct lecturing. And it also encourages students to engage with the discussion much more, right? You engage in much more what we call active learning rather than passively sort of trying to take information that we give to you. And I think that group discussions are especially helpful in the USP because of the interdisciplinary nature of the subject, and when you come together with different perspectives, right, you're likely to see things that you didn't see before. And this is very important, especially in dealing with inequality, as we will see. Inequality is a multifaceted, complex problem. And when I use complex there, I really mean in a technical sense, right? Meaning that it has many components that intersect with one another, right? Such that we can't really understand inequality without understanding each of these components. So to properly understand and appreciate the complexity of inequality, we need to learn within groups and understand a variety of perspectives. And part of what I want to show in the class is precisely that understanding and appreciating how inequality emerges, how we should think about it, and maybe how we should resolve it, if we should resolve it, requires a multifaceted approach that will require us to think through a variety of disciplines, right? Not just from philosophy, not just politics, not just economics, but also education, maybe health, general questions about geography, general questions about how we interact with one another, sociology, the philosophy of emotions themselves, social psychology. These are all questions that we should think about in thinking about inequality. So, group discussions I think will help us, right? Because you can understand perspectives from a wide range, right? But I understand that some of you might not be familiar with this type of group discussion style of teaching. And I want you to, first of all, what I would say is give it a shot. Initially, if the learning curve is a bit steep, I understand. But over time, I hope that you see the benefits of this. But if you feel uncomfortable or you feel lost, right? Anytime you feel, oh, I have a question, I don't know, right? Sometimes it can be disruptive to the class to raise it then, but this is my guarantee to you. If you have a question after class and a burning question, you can email me, Telegram, you can speak to me on Zoom after the class. I will address your question to the best of my ability to try to understand, to try to help to clarify things that you might be unsure of, to the best of my ability, of course. And if I don't know the answer, we can find out together, right? That's why I always say this is a process of learning together. So besides discussion and lecturing, the other central plank of this class, how you do learning, is through learning through reading or learning through other mediums such as watching videos or listening to podcasts. So for readings, there are sort of two compulsory texts. First is Teo Yan's This Is What Inequality Looks Like, which is a very sort of illustrative book about inequality in Singapore and presents many interesting different ways of thinking about it. And T.M. Scanlon's Why Does Inequality Matter, which tries to give a more philosophical understanding of the nature of inequality and why we should be concerned with it, right? And as I hope to show, right, thinking about why we should be concerned about inequality also gives us a practical guide to thinking about how to resolve it, right? Because it highlights what is worrisome or problematic about inequality, and also maybe gives us focus on how to fix that. So you can purchase these books through the co-op, and Scanlon's book is available on the NUS website online for you to read, right? As long as you have NUS account, you can access it and read it as an ebook. But unfortunately, Professor Teo's book is not made available on NUS website. I have requested for it, right? But apparently because there is a hardcover, so they are not going to supply the ebook. But if you have a difficulty getting a copy, please let me know, right? This is, after all, a class about equality, so we have to make sure that everyone, right, can get a copy regardless. So our other readings about papers, journal articles will be made available on Luminous. I have tried to make the reading short and as much as possible accessible, but some of them will be more technical and we will slowly digest them together. And where necessary, there will be a few occasions in the semester where I will create a mini video lecture like this one to explain the reading in a bit more detail, and we will come into class to discuss and unpack the ideas further. So now let me move on to a sort of more content-based question. One question that I get a lot is this: what is this class about? Well, it's about democracy and inequality. That's the glib answer. But students have a serious question, right, which they want to know. Well, will it be more philosophy or more politics, right? And my answer is always both. Right? More specifically, what we're interested here is that we are begin a bit more philosophically. We're going to sort of examine the reasons we have for being concerned about inequality. But towards the middle and the end of the class, we will turn to politics, sociology, economics, some geography, some understanding of healthcare within a society, to better understand the causes of inequality as well as its effects, and also to understand how inequality not only affects the society in general but also our daily lives. Specifically, how we understand ourselves, right? How we behave, how we view ourselves, and also how we interact and relate to one another. Now, all of this sounds vague, but I promise you, it will be made more concrete over time. And I also want to note something else, right? Which is that many people are afraid of doing philosophy. But I hope that through this course, we'll see that philosophy can be not only practical, can relate to many practical issues, but it can also be, dare I say, fun. It can be something that is really interesting to understand and wrap your head around, right? Even though sometimes the concepts might seem abstract and flighty. So now let's turn to assessments. So I won't run through the details here, but you can see them on your screen currently. So if you want to sort of read them carefully, you can pause the video. I'll leave each side on for about 10-15 seconds so you can read it, and if you need to, you can pause. All these details will be made available on Luminous under the file folder assessment details. And for each of these assessments, I will have more details closer to the date about the requirements, rubrics, so on and so forth. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will answer any questions you have. Finally, before I go, and before this video is too long and you lose your attention, I want to talk briefly about the classroom and our topic for this semester: democracy and inequality. Now, most of you, I think, when you hear this, sometimes you get this reaction, right? Right? I think it's natural for many of us to feel like this emoji or this painting by Edward Munch whenever these types of topics are brought up. We also might feel like Ron Swanson here, uncomfortable. Now, I myself must confess that sometimes I also feel uncomfortable discussing such topics, even though this is literally part of my job. So the point I want to make here is that questions surrounding inequality and politics are typically charged. Right? We don't often discuss these issues in what we call polite company. Right? It's not the right thing to do, right? In a lot of social settings. But part of the aim of the class is for us to have more open conversations about these issues. And to do that, I think we need to respect one another despite disagreement. Most importantly, I believe that we should learn how to talk about inequality so that we can better understand it. Right? We shouldn't be like an ostrich, right, which supposedly sticks its head in the sand. Right? That's not the way that we should deal with this issue. By having more open conversations about inequality, we can better understand it and also think about whether or not we should deal with it and how we should try to resolve it. And I hope that we can do this together as a class. And with that, I think we are ready to meet for our first session, and I look forward to a great semester with all of you. See you in the classroom.